Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast, episode 273. This is the Doctor is In series. I am Chris Hadnaghi, CEO and founder of Social Engineer, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. And I've been hosting this podcast since 2009. And as always, with the Doctor is In series, we have our resident doctor here, Dr. Abbie. Nice to have you on the show, as always.
Good to be here, Chris. I'm Dr. Abbie Maroño. I'm a behavioral scientist, director of education at Social Engineer, and a top 1% behavior analysis expert.
You forgot who you work for. Wow, that hurts just a little bit. Just a little, you know.
Forgot who I am this morning, so it's okay.
It's okay. In a couple months, we're going to have an episode about bullying, and I'll be okay since you bullied me right now. Anyhow, before we wipe our tears away, let's go on and talk about the very company that Abbie works for that is sponsoring this episode. And actually, we're really excited because next month, when you're listening to this episode, next month is HubeCon, the Human Behavior Conference. And it is here in Orlando at Rollins College. We have rented the Rice Pavilion. Joe Navarro, Dr. Abbie, and myself are doing a one-day version. We're going to cover things like nonverbals and how you can use them and how you can read them. We're going to cover principles of influence and then how to use elicitation and pretexting skills, wrapping it all together so you can become the best communicator that you want to be in anything. Whether you're negotiating a salary raise or you're trying to talk to your subordinates or people that you work for, whatever it is that you want to learn how to communicate better, this can be good for salespeople, law enforcement, and everyone in between. So if you want to come down, spend a day with us, you can find the information on humanbehaviorcon.com, or if you just go to social-engineer.com, there's a link on the top banner that you can get right to the page and come down and see us. There's only 175 seats total, and I'm not sure where we're at with the sales right now. So, and because it's a closed pavilion, we only have limited seating. So please join us there. It will be a great time. October 30th is the date. So while it's cold and rainy everywhere else in the state, you can come down here in beautiful Florida and join us, Abbie and I, at that episode and that show. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, what else do we got? I want to invite everyone to our Slack channel. If you're not there already, then you're missing out. We have about 1,500 people in there every day talking about all different aspects of social engineering, talking about the conference, talking about jobs that they're doing right now in the SE world, asking for help with pretext or just trading ideas back and forth, books that we read, all sorts of conversation that's family friendly and legal. So if you want to join us, you can find the link in the show notes. And if that's not working, because they do fail every now and then, just hit me up on LinkedIn or another social media and I'll get you the link and you can join us there. I want to invite everyone who's listening to go check out innocentlivesfoundation.org. We can definitely use the help. We're trying to continue our mission right now. I think we're over 525 cases handed into law enforcement. And if you're not familiar with what we do, we help law enforcement geolocate and people who traffic children and create child abuse material. And we do that in a non-vigilante way. We do it all legal and above board. And we've been working with law enforcement now for 7 years in doing this. So I'm really proud of the work that happens over there. And if you like the music of the podcast, go check out clutchmerch.com. It is none other than Clutch. Everyone knows, I've said this a million times, my favorite band, the best rock and roll band on earth. And Neil helped me start the ILF 7 years ago, the lead singer there of Clutch. So we have special love for them here too. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, a heart, a like, whatever it is on the app you're listening to, and keep your ideas coming in, please. We have a lot of people who comment and give us their ideas on what they want to hear on future episodes. And that helps Abbie and I plan on what kind of topics we'll be talking about, which brings us to this month. What is the topic you chose for us this month, Dr. Abbie?
The topic this month kind of goes back to the psychology basics. So we're talking about attachment styles.
Okay, so let's start off with the very basic. Let's define it. What is attachment styles?
So they're largely about relationships. Attachment styles are patterns of behavior and ways of thinking that determine how individuals form and maintain relationships with others, particularly in the context of romantic relationships and close interpersonal bonds. And they are deeply rooted in the early childhood interactions, specifically with our primary caregivers, but they continue to influence relationships throughout life.
So this is going to be another episode where we find out how bad my mom messed me up. Thanks, Abbie.
Mine also.
Well, so, thank you. Okay. I love these episodes. This is like therapy in front of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I take it that attachment styles then could be good and they could be bad, since we are talking about those formative years. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the types of attachment styles,
Yeah.
so that maybe we can define them a little better.
Okay, so most people will be familiar with the three original types and with the work of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth and the strange situation, very, very popular and very, very well known. But these researchers identified three primary types of attachment styles in children, and these are secure attachment, anxious preoccupied attachment, and dismissive avoidant. And then there was a subgroup of children that displayed behaviors that didn't neatly fit into these original categories. So a fourth was added called fearful avoidant attachment style.
Okay, so let's go through each one of those because the names definitely define them, but I'm sure there's a lot more to them. So what's the first one again?
Okay, so let's dive into each one specifically. The first one we're going to cover because it's where we all want to be. This is really the gold standard, and this is where we want our partners to be. This is where we want ourselves to be. And this is secure attachment. Individuals with a secure attachment are comfortable with closeness, as well as independence and interdependence. So relying on other people as well as relying on oneself. And this tends to be associated with a very positive or generally positive view of themselves and others. And they communicate their needs and feelings openly and are responsive to the partner's needs. So this is really why you want your partner to have a secure attachment. They're more reliable also. And this is when we think about a healthy relationship, this is the kind of attachment that we think about because they have stable and satisfying relationships.
Now, if you were not raised in a way that is the attachment style that you have, can you learn it?
Yes, and we will dive into changing attachment types later because I think that's a really, really important point. And the thing about a healthy relationship or a healthy attachment type even is that individuals are good at regulating their emotions and coping with stress. And that's really key. And that isn't as common in non-secure attachment types.
And is that the second one we're going to go over?
Yes. So the other three attachment types are insecure attachment types, and then there's subgroups of insecure. So let's dive into anxious preoccupied first. And as we're going through them, think about if this resonates with you, but don't just think about, okay, is this my partner? Think about, do I have this attachment type? Because the thing is, they're so deeply ingrained that often we don't realize that we have an insecure attachment type. We think, well, this is the way that it should be because this is the way that I'm familiar with and that I am. But as we're talking through these, if anything resonates, it might be time to consider
therapy.
Maybe my way isn't the best way.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into anxious preoccupied. Individuals with this attachment type have a really high need for approval and reassurance from others. So if you think of someone who is constantly needing validation, or if you really feel like you're worth something, you need validation, then it could be that you have this attachment type. And one of the key characteristics is fear of abandonment. So they often worry about their partner leaving them or not loving them enough. So they become overly dependent on their parents or partners for emotional support. So it can have this real instability because high levels of relationship conflict and dissatisfaction can occur because of that fear of abandonment. So they cling and they're prone to experiencing anxiety. So if you think about relationships that have that real up and down, this is really where we're sitting.
Mm-hmm. Where does that come from in childhood? Is that because parents weren't attentive enough, or were they over attentive?
That's a really good question. So this I feel would probably, I would need to brush up again on the strange situation. But if you don't get enough love, or if you get too much, I think anything to the extremes, it can really be a factor here because they become overly dependent. So they've not learn to regulate. So because it has a fear of abandonment, it's likely that the parent has left early in life. So they experience that, but say they go and then they come back and then they go. There's an instability. So you don't really know what to expect. But this is what we often see with individuals who have had, say, a father leave. They have this real fear of abandonment that we see in, and a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of young women that really fear getting intimate because they have that concern that, well, they'll leave like my dad left. And then in the same degree, we have the opposite with, sons and their mothers leave. They have that fear of abandonment. Well, if I get into a relationship with another woman, they will leave like my mother left my father.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense in the extremes, that it could be either one.
Yes. Yeah.
You either train to expect it and need it, or you bring the fear out because of not being there.
Yeah. And what I do want to say with these attachment types is it's really easy to put boxes and say, well, I experienced this, so I'm definitely going to have this. Yes, typically it's our relationship with our caregiver that creates these attachment types. Absolutely. But we also do have to remember that it's not set in stone. So just because you have one experience with a caregiver doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have that relationship later on, because we also have other influences, like, for example, my sister and I, my sister Lee and I have very different types of attachments. She is very codependent with her partner, whereas I am the antithesis of that. I am hyper independent, but we had the same upbringing. I know, crazy. But she also had experiences in her romantic interactions that were different than mine. She also had different friend groups. So I remember her saying that one thing that was really key for her was she would witness her friends' parents' interactions and go, the way my parents are is not right. And this is very different. So she learned really healthy behaviors early on. And she witnessed a lot of really close, loving relationships, where when I think back to my childhood, I never had that. I never had any other adults model that relationship. And I had also very different peer interactions than she had. So although your primary caregiver interactions are really important, doesn't mean they're set in stone, because other relationships can have an effect as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought process, that your friend group could actually change this very ingrained piece of psychology. Because you think, I can think back kind of like your childhood. I remember the first time I realized that what was happening at my house wasn't normal, because I had a sleepover at a friend's house. And I'm like, wait, like, there's no like nightly beatings. Like, what is that? I don't understand. Like, it really was confusing for me. It was like, I don't get it, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And I just remember laying there all night thinking, well, that's not normal. Right. And then that's when you start to realize, oh, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. That's interesting, that because you both raised from the same exact, like my brother, also had really good friend group. So he's like kind of like your sister. So he ended up being very calm and easygoing. Like, he's the opposite of me. I grew up really angry and violent. He grew up.
You're not calm and easygoing, Chris.
I know it's as shocking as your revelation about you being the opposite of your. It's a shock. I know. Yeah. We're revealing things that we didn't know about each other on this podcast that weren't obvious because we hide it so well.
Yeah.
So on to the third one.
Yeah. And just to go back to that quickly, it's really important that it's from an adult too, because as kids, it's adult behavior that we often look to model. And when I say those peer interactions, I don't necessarily mean with friends, because obviously our friend interactions help us. But what I mean is those peer interactions of being able to witness those adults and how they interact with their kids, and also how they interact with us. Because I know my sister's friends' parents felt very sorry for her, so took her in and really tried to make her feel at home, whereas I didn't have that. So it's really important that it's an adult figure. But moving on to the third type, dismissive avoidant. And this is one that you see a lot on social media, people saying, well, he's, an avoidant attachment style, dismissive avoidant. They don't often use the correct terminology, but this is often what they're referring to. So this is people who value independence and self-sufficiency. They tend to keep emotional distances from others, and a lot of the time they're kind of that lone wolf. They can have hyper independence and avoid intimacy. So they avoid close relationships, and this can be romantic, but also friendship relationships, because they want to avoid being vulnerable. And because of that, it can have issues with forming deep and meaningful bonds, which can make you feel really alone, which can then create that cycle of independence. And it all stems from that fear of emotional vulnerability. And they suppress those emotions and avoid dealing with emotional issues. This is where I have sat most of my life. This type of attachment is something that I have struggled with. And if you look back in my relationship history, it isn't very positive. It's very different now in my life. Obviously, I've taken control of my life a lot more than I did early on. But prior to my understanding of psychology, this is really where I sat. And when you don't form those close relationships, think about what it's not allowing you to do. It's not allowing you to change that relationship style and that attachment style, because we need those healthy relationships to try and move us into secure attachment.
And you said that comes from what happens in childhood that creates that?
You're asking me questions that I should know.
I'm sorry.
And how dare you ask me things that I should know? Dismissive avoidant, this is your seeking, please pay attention to me. Please pay attention to me. Please pay attention to me. And you're taught you don't matter.
Yeah. So parents would be not there emotionally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you really, as a kid, you need your emotions to be validated. This is normal. I'm here. I'm nurturing. I'm loving. If you show an emotion and you want attention, and you're basically made to feel that it doesn't matter, well, you go, okay, well, my emotions don't matter. I won't regulate them. I won't seek help because I'm not going to get help. So, and this is really important with mothers, because mothers play that real nurturing role. If you don't have a mother who's nurturing, and this is what we see in mothers that are narcissistic, it can really create dismissive avoidant children, because the kids learn that their emotions don't matter.
Okay. And what's the fourth one?
Fearful avoidant, also known as disorganized attachment. So they have mixed feelings about close relationships, and they desire intimacy, but they fear it at the same time. They fear rejection and abandonment, so they avoid close relationships to protect themselves, but they desire intimacy. So it's that, internal struggle. It's a battle. And this is often associated with unresolved trauma and negative experiences in early life. So we're not just talking about dismissive and, slightly neglectful, but this is, real unresolved trauma, like really deep and typically quite extreme as well, because it is think about it. If you've got one side screaming at the other, you're not completely in one direction, not the other. Imagine how confusing that is mentally, to keep switching sides, because you don't go, okay, well, this is where I firmly sit. Because even if you are unhealthy, say you're independent, at least you can go, okay, well, I sit in this box. This is how I'm going to interact. If you don't know what box you sit in, it's really hard to behave consistently, because you're always going back and forth. And this can cause people to experience ambivalence in relationships. So you seek that closeness and then withdraw. So it causes significant emotional turmoil and instability in relationships. You might have a partner that you're like, okay, loving, they're perfectly happy one minute, and then all of a sudden they're gone. That must be very, very confusing, and also quite traumatic for the partner themselves.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like the winner right there for me.
Yeah, I mean, so for different reasons, all of the insecure attachments can be really, really difficult to deal with. And interestingly, too, I always think, okay, well, what's happening in the brain? Because I like to understand them. they all have very interesting biology. They've all got very interesting patterns and differences when it comes to brain activity.
Can one person be multiple types of attachment?
No, not necessarily. You can move from them, but you can't be multiple. And that's really the point of the attachment types is they said, okay, well, these behaviors are being seen. So let's figure out what box to put them in. And that's why that fourth box was added, because there was a group that didn't fit them neatly. And that's the fourth group that really switches. So if they do switch and you go, well, they seem like this one day and that the other, it fits into that final box.
Yeah, because when you were going through them, I was like, well, yeah, but no. And then, oh, yeah, but no. And then the fourth one was like, oh, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but then, I would imagine when you become self-aware, like, I've been seeing a therapist for years, that you get that help. And then you may not, like, I never heard these attachment styles before, but you start to realize, oh, I do this thing that's unhealthy. And then you start to change that. So you were getting into a little bit about the brain biology with that. So what effects does this have, each one of those have on us?
Yeah, so they're interestingly associated with different patterns of brain activity. And the main thing to really consider without getting, too deep into it is that secure attachments are linked to more effective functioning in brain regions involved in emotional regulation and social cognition, which makes sense. So we see more activity in areas like the prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex that are associated with that, healthy emotional regulation and social cognition. But the thing that I find really interesting is oxytocin. So oxytocin is crucial for forming secure attachments, and it's released during things like physical touch, like hugging and holding hands and intimate activities. And it reinforces feelings of closeness and it helps us bond. This release is so important in solidifying emotional connections between parents and children, as well as later in life between romantic partners. It's most commonly known as the hormone that's released when you give birth to help you bond with your infant. But it's so important for building trust and connection. And individuals with secure attachments have high levels of oxytocin, and lower levels of oxytocin or altered oxytocin receptors can be found in individuals with insecure attachment styles, which affect their ability to form emotional bonds. So I was actually having a conversation with my sister. I have no sense of time or day anymore. So one day in the past recently, and she was speaking to my mom about what she put us through in our childhood. And because my mom wasn't physically abusive, but she was emotionally, psychologically, and verbally, she never saw it as abuse. And my sister tried to explain to her that it has this real important effect later on, and it matters. And oxytocin and the effects on the brain is one of the reasons that all types of abuse are so impactful, because it sets you up for later life. So if you experience that neglect, or if you experience over parenting or under parenting, it affects those oxytocin receptors, which sets you up for now having insecure attachment styles, because you're not being able to bond with others successfully later in life.
I remember reading about the importance of oxytocin in Dr. Zach's book. Something you said kind of made me remember a part of that book where he did an experiment where he tested oxytocin levels when the person was with their significant other, right? Somebody that they loved, and then tested their oxytocin levels when they were looking at social media of that person. And he found that the levels were very similar, that the oxytocin release was very similar by just looking at their social media, like just checking out their Instagram or their Facebook or something. And then your brain went, oh, this is the person I love, or this person loves me. And you got that release, showing how important that is in a relationship, right? That you have that.
Exactly. Consider a long distance relationship. If you're in an insecure relationship where that oxytocin is really fluctuating and it's not consistent like that, well, think about how staying loyal to that person and having really good open communication might be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at that biological level. So sometimes we behave in ways that we don't understand. You know, why do I feel disgust to this person that I thought I loved? Why do I want to pull away when I really want to be with this person too? And you might get really frustrated at that feeling. And a lot of the time it's an underlying biological impact. But here's the thing, and this is the best thing about it. Therapy can positively influence attachment styles and lead to changes in oxytocin levels.
Mm-hmm.
So there are very specific therapies for it too, that are very, very effective. And we don't have time to go through the specific therapies, but the main point is that regular positive social interactions during therapy, they help increase that oxytocin level, but so does mindfulness. And this is one of the reasons that mindfulness is so important too, is because it affects stress levels, and lower stress levels can lead to more consistent oxytocin production. So think about how hard it is to stay in a really healthy relationship when you're both really stressed all the time. And it can make a healthy relationship exhibit behaviors like insecure attachment styles. And that can be partially because of oxytocin productions that's being played on by that increased amount of stress.
So what's the path? Like someone listening to this saying, okay, I definitely got one of those three, insecure types. Besides therapy, like you mentioned, what's the path to overcoming that or healing it, I guess is the right word?
Yeah. So this is so important when we talk about attachment types. And like I said, I had very unhealthy attachment types. And I have actually moved through them as I developed different kinds of relationships. And the one thing that I have always said is my superpower to get through the things I've been through is education. Because psychology is so foundational to everything. The foundational to the self, to relationships. So understanding attachments first is really key, because if you don't understand something, how can you do anything about it? Or if you have a misinformed knowledge about it, then how can you do anything about it?
Yeah.
Because you're going to go in the wrong direction. So firstly, learning about attachment theory and learning to recognize, okay, well, what does this attachment style show, can be really empowering, because it can provide a roadmap for change. You might not realize you need to change. And before you start implementing any practice, which we will go into in a second, understanding first is really key. So you don't end up going, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do, head off in that direction, but it's not the direction you need. You might go, okay, well, this is the attachment type I have. But if you haven't really spent that time properly learning, again, you might go off in the wrong direction or apply principles that aren't really going to help you.
Education seems so important in everything, right?
Yes.
I mean, like we talk about this in our company all the time. It's like, you can't defend against an attack. You don't even know what the attack is. So this feels like very much the same thing. Like, how can you possibly heal something if you don't even know what's wrong? You're taking the wrong medicine.
Exactly. I say this all the time. If you go to the doctors and you say, okay, well, I don't feel very well. And they go, I know, like, this is what you need to take. They give you a pill. And you take that pill and they go, okay, so how does it work? And they go, I don't know. But I just know that your symptoms go away because I gave it to someone else who had the same symptoms. They went away. You wouldn't be comfortable in that knowledge. You want them to understand what is going on inside the body. Well, when it comes to improving your life, being more productive, anything, being a good communicator, you need to understand how it works. You need to understand how human behavior works if you want to successfully change it or influence it. But when I say that, people go, oh, well, you're biased because you're an academic and the director of education. So yes, I am biased, but there's a reason that I'm in those positions, because I recognize that education is so fundamental to everything. And with that education, you can now go, okay, what's my road to change?
Shameless plug. You can find out more on humanbehaviorcon.com. That was a great line for like coming to our conference. But no, I mean, I'm not an academic. I'm far from an academic. I'm like the opposite. I barely even have a degree in high school. And yet I think that education is superiorly important. Now, I don't go to the level that you do in reading scientific papers for fun, but I find that, I mean, it's impossible. Like my therapist helped me to understand, like I didn't understand these things, but helped me to understand, well, what is, when I feel this way, I do this thing that creates this problem. Now, how can you fix it if you don't know that path? Right. So to me, understanding it is direly important if you have a desire to change. Right. I think what you said before is important. A lot of people don't know they need to change, or maybe they're not even willing. Right. Like your mom, right? You said, I mean, that was my parents too when they were around. They didn't think they did anything wrong. You know,
and that's really important too, that, you know, not realizing if something's wrong, but say you feel in your body, like you don't realize you have a bad attachment type. And I don't use the word bad, but you have an insecure attachment type. But you're having trouble with relationships, and you might realize I'm having these relationships and they're not working. Why? But you might not pinpoint the attachment type as the problem. And you might say, well, I'm going for these kinds of partners. And what you might be finding is you're going for partners with another specific kind of attachment type, but not know that's the issue. So outside of learning about your attachment types, observing healthy relationships and looking at, okay, well, what are healthy relationship practices? And it might be, you know, going to friends who have healthy relationships, or friends with parents who have healthy relationships, and speaking to them. Say, I'm having these issues. What do you advise? If you go to someone who is consistently having disorganized and unsuccessful relationships, they probably can't offer you the most effective advice. So going to people that you see they are having a healthy relationship and asking them advice on, well, this is what I do and this is what I'm seeing, or, you know, what do you suggest might work? And a lot of the time we don't do that because it's uncomfortable. We get really comfortable with our attachment types in the way that we're interacting with people. So learning something new can feel really uncomfortable and unfamiliar, and the brain loves familiarity. So what you'll find is, as you do start to adapt and change into more healthy patterns, like communicating, and to increase oxytocin, you need to interact with people more. And if you're avoidant or dismissive, that can be really uncomfortable. So your body is saying, no, I don't like this. And it's really hard not to listen to that. But you have to remember that getting comfortable with discomfort is the only way to change. So if you want to move into that secure attachment, you've got to learn to go against what your body is saying to do. Because sometimes your body is lying to you, because your body is ultimately programmed for survival. And what it thinks it needs to survive isn't always what you need to flourish, and it isn't always the healthiest. So going against what your body is saying sometimes is really key to do, and just say, okay, I'm going to try and model these other behaviors that I know are going to be helpful, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, all that makes sense. You want your gym trainer to look like he or she works out.
Yes.
Right. I mean, you don't want to go to the person who just got done eating his 15th cheeseburger and then be like, hey, be my trainer. Right. So you want I want my guy to look 10 times better than I'll ever look. So that way I know he's living the lifestyle. Right. So you want the same thing. You go to people. I found that to be useful for me. Like I have friends that have like amazing relationships, and you just say, okay, look, I got this older couple my wife and I are friends with. They're going on their 52nd year of marriage. Wow. Right. So this year's their 52nd. So we're going out to dinner with them, and we're like, okay, what's the secret? Like, give me the secret. You've been married 50. That's as long as I've been alive. That's longer than I've been alive. You guys been married that long. Like, that's crazy to me. Right. So you ask those questions and you sit and you just listen. Like, now educate me. Tell me what to do, because I want to know. And that's awesome when you can do that.
And the problem is, especially now on social media, and with the current generation, there is a lot of unhealthy relationships that we see. It's really rising. And a lot of that is because people think that they have an exponential amount of options. So they treat people like they don't matter. So you might go in with a really healthy relationship style, then go through negative experiences. because people do have this tendency to treat you like you're just an option. And that can be really hard to deal with. And that can be, for some people, very traumatic too. So having general emotional well-being is so important, because when you're looking at how to have healthy relationships, one really important thing is having a healthy relationship with yourself and having general emotional regulation and emotional understanding that you can then bring to situations, because it stops you getting into negative relationships that can then have a really negative impact on you. So having general behaviors like being mindful and meditating and journaling and looking at ways you can generally increase your emotional intelligence is key, as well as setting boundaries, learning to set boundaries and learning what boundaries are comfortable for you, and then learning to set them and also respect other people's boundaries is so important. And we see this in secure relationships. One key factor of secure relationships is they're very good at setting healthy boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries. If you want to get to that point, you've got to start getting comfortable with doing the same. Otherwise, you're going to continuously overstep to other people and continuously let other people keep you in that negative cycle. And a final thing that's really good for learning emotional regulation, if you don't read articles like academic articles, is self-help books, self-help blogs. And I'm going to plug my own book here too, because I have a self-help book that is all based on understanding our emotions and understanding how to regulate negative emotions and using them for our benefit and getting into a secure relationship with ourselves.
You know, that's interesting. I was reading an article yesterday. It was about dating and courtship. And this article made a really interesting statement that before, I'm gonna reword it, but before you get too serious, your emotions get too attached and too serious, it's a good idea to talk to the potential, person about your past traumas and your financials, any financial woes you've had or any kind of other problems, because if you get married to this person and then you all of a sudden find out, whoa, it's kind of like unwrap this box of garbage and that's your family. What the heck? Or you went through that and they can't handle it. That's the wrong time to find out once you're emotionally attached. So it's not like, date one, you're like, here's my whole life and here's every bad thing that happened. But, as you grow, there was suggesting that it's a great idea to kind of share that, because that person needs to be prepared.
And it can be a great red or green flag indicator too, because as you're starting to get serious, so like you say, you don't do this on the first date,
right? Yeah,
like, hey, my mother was abusive. How are you?
Right?
What kind of do you like? What's your favorite
great
color?
For date one conversation,
But as you're both on the same page that you want this to go somewhere, having that conversation is really key. And why I said it's a green or a red flag indicator is because as you start to be open and you start to say, hey, let's have an open conversation, they can either say yes or no. And they can either be open or closed. Them being closed is an indicator that they probably don't have a secure relationship, secure attachment type. And that is a big red flag, because communication has been shown to be the biggest factor in relationship downfalls. So if you can't communicate well, but also if you're going, okay, I need to have this open conversation, open communication, but you're finding yourself really, really pulling back and struggling with being open, well, something is going on there too. Either it's maybe you're struggling with the way that you interact and maybe you're not comfortable in healthy relationships, or maybe it's your intuition telling you something about your partner too. Maybe that for some reason that relationship isn't making you feel safe enough to share. So either way, it's important to have that open communication and listen to how you're feeling about it.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. I think you and I talked about this before. I would not want to be back on the dating pool in this day and age. I feel so bad for young folks that or anyone that really has to deal with this.
Yeah.
There's so much complication now that just didn't exist when I was your age. I'm sounding so old now, but there really wasn't. I mean, we didn't have the internet and internet dating and all the weird things going on today. So it's just I don't envy you guys having to having to navigate this.
Yeah, social media does make it very difficult to navigate
Yeah.
relationships. Again, because it gives this idea that people are disposable.
Yeah.
Especially when you swipe.
Yeah.
Swipe. I'm just going to swipe away in person.
Yep.
Psychologically, you're like, nah. You are literally disposing of a person. And you're going, yep, like them, like them, like them. So you're looking at this collection of all these people that are potential options. So someone does something that isn't perfectly perfect. And you're like, nah, got loads
swipe
more.
right?
People are not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, a relationship, a really important part of a relationship is saying we are both imperfect, but you decide this is going to be a healthy relationship. You have to make a decision that despite things not being perfect, I'm going to commit. And you can have very healthy relationships with people with insecure attachments, but you do have to be willing to put in extra work. So if someone has an insecure attachment but are an amazing person, don't go, okay, next. You know, see how you feel. Are you willing to put in that help and support them? But it doesn't mean completely dismiss people or they're useless. It just means they might need a little bit more support. They might need some patience. They might need a little bit of extra love. They might need directing to resources that they can also help themselves. Don't know why I was doing an Italian thing here with my hand.
I mean, I've been training you well. I'm happy. So, Dr. Abbie, this was another excellent episode. I think this is going to help a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to probably have comments on this one, so this will be good. Next month, what are we doing?
Next month is going to be wonderful because we have one of my really, really good friends joining us on the podcast for just an amazing conversation. And I love him. You love him. And I know our audience are going to absolutely love him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He is amazing.
Yeah.
So we will be joined by Judd Shaw from Judd Shaw Injury Law, talking about authenticity.
Yeah. And don't judge it because she said lawyer. Don't judge it. I'm telling you, this guy is going to blow your mind. He really is. He's going to blow your mind. Just trust us. We haven't lied to you yet. This is not a conspiracy theory. By the way, shameless plug for a past episode. But this is going to be amazing next month. So make sure you check in. Thanks, Doc, for bringing up this episode today. As always, it was very educational and enlightening. And thank you all for joining us this month. Until next month, stay safe. See you.